Okay, cool. Yep, we're live now. Awesome. Well, Corey, thanks for taking time out of your day to speak with us. I know you're a hardworking man. You got a lot of things on your plate. And I just appreciate it. You've been such a big part of our group. So I know a lot of people are excited to be a part of, interact with you on this webinar just because you're such a big, awesome voice in the group. And I really do appreciate it as being kind of the founder of it. You have contributed so much and added so much value to it. It's always great to see your name pop up. So thanks for joining me. And this was an easy choice for me to reach out to you because I was like,
Thanks, man.
Corey's one of those guys that always is active. And the nice thing I really like about you is that you're not 10 years in the game. You haven't been in it that long, and you found a lot of success really early on. And I think a lot of people in the group will find a lot of value in that. So thanks for joining us. And I'm going to start I'll ask you a few questions and would love to just kind of hear your, I guess, story to some extent, but also how much value we can drive to our members. And, feel free to take this wherever you please.
Well, make sure we let the guests know that if they watch this live, they got to pay $50. And if they rewatch it, I'll rewatch it. They're $25. The other podcasts you did were free. So this one's charges.
Yeah, we got the salesman coming out already. I love it. So yeah, let's kind of talk about your first deal. So I think the first deal is really fascinating because you're kind of coming in, and at least I did 4 years ago. I didn't have much knowledge. I didn't really know what I was doing. And kind of how's your approach to it? How did you look at it? How did you analyze it? And how did you even come across that to realize oh, mobile home parks actually has something here? Was this something that you just learned about, or did you stumble into it?
Well, it's actually a 100, people use the term stumble, but this was a 100% stumble. So I actually was a huge fan of John Fedro.
Yep.
Fedro, whatever his name is, John Fedro. He remodels mobile homes, and he claims you can become a millionaire. And so, of course, I was reading the Deals on Wheels by Lonnie Scruggs, and I knew nothing about mobile home parks. I just knew I wanted to flip houses, and at that time, I had about 50 grand saved up. So I stopped at this park right in my hometown, and I was talking to the owner, and I said, "Hey, I'm going to take these 10 homes you got here, and I'm going to fix them all up, and I'm going to rent them." And he said, "Corey, I'm too old for that shit. I'm 85 years old. Just buy the whole park for me." I'm like, "Well, I can't do that because I don't have the credit at the time to even buy a park." And he's like, no, I'll seller finance it. And I was like, "Well, what does that even mean? I didn't even know what that meant." And he's like, "Well, you give me money and I carry the loan." I'm like, "Well, I don't have enough." And he's like, "Well, what do you got?" I was like, 50 grand. He's like, "Well, you need walking around money. So give me 40 and I'll finance the difference." And I was like, "All right, cool. I guess I'm going to buy a mobile home park." So I bought it, and then obviously I had 60 days of due diligence or whatever, and I started reading Frank and Dave's books and watching their videos, and
wow.
kind of preparing that way. So we raised the rents and hauled in a bunch of homes, and we are actually about 30 days out from the sale of that. I love the park. It's 99% collection rate, so I didn't want to be bought out altogether.
Yeah.
But we bought that at $250.
Yeah.
And we just sold 50. We're selling 50% of it for $400,000. So we did pretty well on it.
Awesome. Wow. That's great. I love stories like that. And so where was this park in relation to where you were?
So actually this park was about 5 miles from where I lived. I used to actually have a family member that lived in it. I'm from a poor family. So, I grew up in a trailer park up until I was about 10 or 11. And,
wow.
So I've actually lived it, right?
So you actually grew up in a mobile home park?
Yeah, my dad and my mom both owned. When they got divorced, they both moved to different trailer parks, and yeah. So that was about till I was 12.
That's fascinating. Okay, and so you're kind of familiar with it, but from an investment standpoint, you didn't. That wasn't something that ever kind of ran into your mind.
Right. Yep.
Okay, and so. One thing I like about you, I'm going to jump all over the place. So Corey is very talented at getting seller financing. And you said seller financing here, and I'm guessing you learned about it here and you're like, wow, this is great. I'd want this every time.
Every time.
Why would I go another route if I could get seller financing every single time? And you've done a very good job. So of the deals that you have now, what percentage of them are seller carry?
So we have 4 that are seller financed. One of which we got for $25,000 down on 25 tenants only, but all their rents are $150 below market. Wow. So, we're talking about massive returns, but to get the seller financing, a lot of people will just, again, because, and there is a sales side to this. And, when people say they hate selling stuff, but they're in the mobile home park world, I'm like, that doesn't really add up for me because, people will say, oh, let's say Mr. Seller Ian here, he says, oh, I want 500,000. You say, oh, well, Ian, would you do seller financing? No. Oh, okay. And then you kind of reevaluate the deal. I don't work it like that. I'll even because I do a warm up with them. And if any of you guys are in the sales business, you kind of know what a warm up is. It's basically just becoming their friend so that you can talk to them in a more, not disrespectful way, but you can be more blunt with them, more friendly with them. Yeah. So you say, well, look, I can give you the 500,000 that you're looking for, Ian. And then what? You pay the government, 150,000, and you're going to stick it in a treasury stock for what, 2%? I said, you're too smart to do that, Ian. You're way too smart to do something like that. But look, you want 500,000, I'll up it to 550 if you do seller financing, or I'll just pay you out in cash and you can give Uncle Sam some money. It's up to you.
Interesting. So with attractive seller financing, obviously it's non-recourse. You can probably get a longer amortization than if you did local financing. You're like, I'll even increase the price so you sweeten the deal that way.
Well, yeah, because for me, I'm not the typical investor that's, some guys that do this and good for them. That's fine. But for me, like I said, I kind of came up on my own savings. So once I bought my first park, I was dead broke. I have a good job. I still do have a job that I really love. But I was dead broke. So I had to figure out a way to buy parks and also sell my investors on letting me stay in the deal without putting in any more money. And what better way than to say, you don't need to go to a bank. So you're no more valuable than me, really, except that you have the money. I'm bringing the financing, I'm bringing the deal, and I'm going to run the deal. All of a sudden, I become way more powerful than even the investor is at that point.
Interesting. So you used your, I guess, what it looks like a lower position in terms of a leverage, and you turned it into a positive. And so you said, I'm the fulcrum of this deal to actually make it work, Mr. Investor. Like, you're not going to do this work. This is obviously very hard work to get done. And for the investor, for the owner, they want to get rid of it. So it's like, you're able to merge the two in a way that other people wouldn't be able to do. That's fascinating, because the thing I love about what you do is everyone always says in commercial real estate, oh, I don't have any money, I can't get started. And it's like, you're showing that that's not the case. Like, you can get started. You just have to be creative, and you have to be willing to work and think about things in a different way. So when people say that, and if you think it's someone who actually has really understands that, they actually could get it done if they just shifted their mindset. What do you tell someone when they're saying you can't get started in commercial real estate if you have $0?
So the person who made up the saying, and this is something that I can just say off the cuff here because I say it so much. The person who said it takes money to make money is a guy that's really rich that didn't want you to try. Okay. That is my honest to God belief, because that kind of mindset is just trash. It's 100% not correct. You do not need money. It was like I was kind of almost I don't think it was in your group, but it was in another group. These people were like, oh, I found this park, but I don't have the money. And I said, well, if you have a great deal, getting the money is easy. And they were shocked. They're like, getting money is easy. And they were just totally shocked and thought that I was just the stupidest person on earth for saying that. And it's like, the takes money to make money thing is just non-existent as far as what my experience has been in Now, don't get me wrong, when my park sells, I would love to put in more money, but with my money, it'll come to be more equity. So I'm okay doing that. I don't always want to be the guy putting in zero because I get less percentage, right? But yeah, no, if you're holding yourself back because you don't have money, then you're missing the boat. And it's like, if my fiance was here with us, I said, hey, we're going to buy this first park. We'll be broke, but then in 5 years, we'll refinance and we'll be able to make another one. And it was within 6 months that I realized that was the stupidest thing I ever said. Like, I'm going to own, 1,000 lots before this park even sells. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's, definitely don't shy away from getting into the game because you don't have any money.
Okay. So let's push on this a little bit more. So assuming you don't have money, right? Like, so it sounds like you came from a background where, you didn't know a lot of people that had money. And
Right.
So how do you start to make those connections? Say you're just someone similar in your scenario, like what was your solution? And I think I know part of it, but I'm interested to hear from you. What was your solution to start getting people interested to say, you know what, Corey has something really cool going on. I trust this guy. I would love to invest with him. So kind of like take me back to before you had investors and even thought about it.
Well, the cool thing, for me was that I had a park and I was able to say, hey, I bought this park at 20 tenants. The lot rent was $220. It's now $310. We've hauled in these homes. So but that's number one. But number two is by participating in groups like yours, going to the boot camp, just where you meet people, it doesn't matter what state you're in. Every state except Hawaii has a manufactured housing association. It's $300 a year. If you don't even own a park, join it and then go to their conventions and go up to these people. You'll know who the important ones are there, I promise you. And you go up to those people. And I did this. I mean, at the Michigan Manufactured Housing Association, at that time, I was 6 months into owning my park. Hardly anyone was taking me serious, but I had a plan. And I was going up to people, letting them know that I was going to be finding parks and I wanted their numbers so that I could pitch them to them, and if they were in the market for buying. And then they'd usually say, hey, what kind of parks are you looking for? I'd say, I'm looking for anything that you're looking for. Tell me what you're looking for. That's what I'll go find. Now, I never did any deals with those people because I started meeting other people, and now I kind of have a cluster of investors that I like to work with, preferably because I know they can close.
Yep.
But yeah, that would be my advice. I mean, if you have, $2,500 in the bank, it's like Grant Cardone always says, if you have only $2,500 in the bank, there ain't much you can invest that in. Go invest in yourself. Buy a ticket to the boot camp. Go to the Louisville Manufactured Housing Association. If you only have $2,500, you're already broke. So invest in yourself and get richer mentally and professionally.
Yeah, that's great advice. That having that knowledge. So do you think? Let's push on this a little bit more. So do you think that having that first park gave you, if you didn't have that, you would have found another way though, right? Like if you knew mobile home parks was it, like I know some people are like, oh, well, he had his first park.
Well, yeah. And that's the thing is,
go for it.
Well, I mean, and that's the small-minded people that will be watching this and they'll say, oh, well, he got lucky on his first one. No, I did not. I'm out there driving, talking, meeting with owners. And then when the opportunity arose, I prepared myself to make sure that I was ready. And then when I bought that one, I also prepared myself to expand at a fast rate. So there, in the real estate game, unless you find somebody that just won the lottery and pays you a one cap on your park, there really isn't much luck in it, right? I mean, you catch some lucky breaks here and there, but it's, 90% of people wouldn't save 50 grand at 26 at all. And then also write it one check and watch your balance go all the way to zero. That was the scariest thing I've ever done in my life because, as I mentioned at the beginning, I did grow up not poor. I wouldn't call us poor, but we didn't have extras, right? To save 50 grand, I was like the richest person ever for my family to ever exist. And then I wrote a check and took it right to zero.
Yeah. Yeah. You invested in yourself, right? Like, or you bet on yourself. You bet on yourself that like, this is exactly, where I want to go. I see the opportunities here. And even if no one else believes me, I'm going to bet on myself. And I think that in and of itself is one of those things that only a few people can actually do. They cannot actually like watch it all run away. And so, outside of the associations, what was your boot camp? You started meeting people. Tell me a little bit about your Facebook strategy. I think this is something I want to push on too, which I'm guessing has led you to a lot of conversations. Like, tell me a little bit about your social media strategy and how that maybe has played into your ability to just meet people to invest in your deals.
Yeah, so when I first started becoming, a little bit successful, I was always really scared to post about it. Um, and then, after kind of thinking about it, I changed my mindset on posting about, I'm not going to get on there and, because I'm not, but I'm not going to get on there and say like, oh my God, I'm the richest ever and you people are nothing. But the point is, you see people all the time say, oh man, I'm struggling financially, or I'm hurting for cash. And that's okay. But the moment you have money and you start to display that success and talk about how you do it, that becomes, oh, he's braggy. He's all that. And they put you in this box of like a greedy person. But if I was talking about how poor I was, everyone would be on there, keep your chin up, keep your head up. So
Right.
my Facebook strategy is the same exact as my life strategy. So I try to make sure that I see, even through, obviously I'm just like everybody else where I have negative things happen to me, but I try to pull the learning aspect from that negative, experience, with, and turn it into more of a positive. So, I post a lot of positivity, and I post a lot about my successes on Facebook. And I was just talking with an investor, I won't say his name, but right before this call, he met me from Facebook just from me posting about my deals. And he messaged me and I called him. And within a couple hours, he's like, hey, I have a couple $1 million that I would like to put to work, and I want you to find the parks for me. So,
Yeah.
posting about, if I was to get on there and talk about how shitty the world was, or how terrible the president is, or all this negative garbage, then why would somebody want to bet 2 million on me? They wouldn't. So, your Facebook these days is your image, even more so than how you present yourself in real life.
That's a great way to put it too. And one thing I found so I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I should probably post more of my stuff than I do on Facebook. But what I find fascinating with social media strategy is you build a lot of passive relationships with people. Like, even if they're not commenting, engaging on everything, they're still watching you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And over time, there might be a point where they just snap and they're like, I got to reach out to this guy. Like,
Yeah.
this guy's got something different. I'm interested in seeing what he's doing. And I've had so many conversations off that. And sometimes I'm not even posting anything mobile home related. And so I think you've done a very good job of just saying like, this is what I'm working on. What's going on here. This is something that I'm doing. I just closed my most recent park. And those types of stories, one, get attention, right? It gets attention when people see someone else as being successful, which is very good. And then two, on top of that, you start to pique people's interest. And if you do that consistently over a long period of time, it snowballs. So how long ago did you start doing social media?
I started focusing really hard on it about a couple years ago, I would say. You know, uh, I started joining the groups, but really I've gotten the most active once you guys started your group, because there's people that I don't know necessarily, but I know their names and they're in that group. So it's like, of course I want to, I have this, it's not a dream, it's a goal, but I have this goal where, one day when people are getting into the business, they see me comment on their stuff and they get all giddy about it. You know what I mean? That, oh
Cool.
my
Yeah.
God, Corey Woodruff's comment. That's the goal,
Yeah. And so talk a little bit about your goals, and then I'd love to talk a little bit about your deal sourcing strategy, because I think that's something you do extraordinarily well. Tell me a little bit about your goals and how those evolved over the past couple years, and how do you kind of came into those for what you want?
Yeah. So basically, I would say 1 year ago, I wanted to have 1,000 lots in 10 years.
A
Today
year ago.
it's looking like I'm gonna have 1,000 before December.
That's
We have,
awesome.
yeah. So I mean, right now we have 266. We have a couple closings that are scheduled for this month. Due diligence is done. They're ready to go, and that'll add another 250 right there. But it is looking like it is an extremely good possibility that we are at 1,000. But by December 31st, 2022, I would like to be at 5,000. 5,000 lots. And the
Wow.
great thing about a goal that's that big is if you fail by half, you're still doing damn good. you know?
True. So tell me about, so now that you have, so you're going, you're going for like top 10 owners in the country. It sounds like that's a goal for you in the next 10 years. Like you're wheeling and dealing, and you're willing to look everywhere and anywhere to find deals. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep. I'll look all over the country. Obviously, to anything in the Midwest is obviously my favorite because I do like to, I enjoy going into the parks and seeing what's going on. I'm a little bit of, I'm not always the most organized person in the world because I do have so much stuff going on and I work 60 hours a week as well and do all this. But I do enjoy the operation side of things, and so I like to be able to see them. But
Okay, cool. And so how are you finding deals? Like, well, tell me a little bit about your strategy into doing that, and maybe some of the techniques you use to get deals. Because I mean, it seems like you're every couple times a month you're posting a deal in a different state.
yeah, so basically, and again, it goes back to like having those limited beliefs. So a year ago, I was thinking, oh, once I sell one of my parks, I'm going to hire 2 full-time callers, and they're going to call for me, and I'm going to pay them hourly. And then, I felt like that's not really fair to me. I mean, I'm a head of sales at a timeshare company, and my bosses, they pay me well, and I love them and all that, but they don't pay me shit unless I make them money.
Yeah.
So I've actually convinced 2 people to make very good deals, and that's to call for me for free. And then when they when they get a deal, they're pitching it off to me, and they're getting half of my 1% acquisition fee. So the person who drug their feet the most and fought me on it is the one who got the 7.85 million. So he's about to cash out some big money. So he's more motivated than ever, and the other caller is even more motivated than ever. So
So do you do any calling yourself on the initial call, or are you more on just the second call?
no, I do calling on my own as well. Yeah.
And
Well,
how
because
many
I don't
calls?
want to have to split a fee with everybody.
I don't blame you. And so
Right.
how many calls do you think you're pumping out a week?
Um, I would say I would say 150, but I would also say this: the number of calls isn't as important as the quality of them. So
Great point.
when I hit 150, I'm not jumping up and down. I'm thinking I probably didn't get a ton done. So that's always the goal, is to have 150 quality calls.
Yeah.
But I'm just as happy when I only can get 50, as long as it's not because I was lazy that week, right? Because if I'm getting off the phone, if I'm looking down my call list and I'm noticing that I spent an average of 3 minutes on each call, no relationship was built. When they are ready to sell, they're not calling me.
Yeah. And so what apps do you use, or what service do you use to kind of find numbers and to I guess get in touch with people?
Yeah, so I've created lists over time, but I don't use. I'm actually pretty old school when it comes to call lists. I don't like one of my partners. He uses Podio, and it's great, but I can't. It overwhelms me when I can't scroll down and see every name I'm working on. So
Yeah.
I'm literally calling off of a Google Drive list, and I'm calling off of that. And then I have pieces of paper and I'm writing it down, and that's how I track it. It's not very sophisticated, but it works for me.
Hey
In the
man, you're
moment,
closing deals, dude.
yeah, and the moment it gets put into a CRM, all those names just are in a file somewhere. I don't get to look at them, and That's just how I do it. I would love if somebody brought me a CRM system that just worked great for me, but I haven't seen it yet. So.
Okay. And so when you find a deal, how are you analyzing it? So you do a lot of cold calls. You have two cold callers who are doing free, but they're getting compensating extraordinarily well. Like that guy's going to, if you have a $7 million deal, then that means, he's going to get what, $35,000, from finding the right guy at the right time. Do you have any strategies that you're using to get in front of sellers that allow you to be kind of successful? And I understand if some of these are secrets, no, you don't have to share them, but like, what's getting you in front of sellers? Obviously you're a very personable guy, you're in sales, but like, do you have anything that you do that gets you deals that other people don't?
Yeah, I think the big mistake that people make when they call is they call and they say, "Hey, Ian, my name's Corey, and I'm wondering if you're interested in selling."
Yep.
And then what do you hear? No. And you don't have much to go on. Okay. You don't have much to go on there. So I call and I say, "Hey, is this Mike?" And he says, "Yeah, it's Mike." I say, "Hey, how you doing today, Mike?" And he'll say, "Good." I'm like, "All right, well, at this point, you're kind of wondering why some guy's asking you how you're doing and you don't even know who I am. Look, I own a bunch of parks. You own a park. I want to buy yours. Does that interest you?" So now I'm not saying, "Are you interested in selling?" I'm telling him that I want to buy your park. And then so it changes like the trajectory of the conversation from "Are you interested?" to "I'm interested. I'm interested in buying your park." And then when they say no, the average person is just saying, "Okay, thanks, keep me in mind," and hanging up. I'm gonna say, "Well, look, is it no forever? Are you passing it to the kids?" "Well, no." And then he'll start going into it. And then the moment he starts talking off tape, then you're in. And then you're starting to ask him, you say, "Hey, you've been in the business for a long time. You said you own the park 20 years. And sometimes I'll lie about my age. I'll say I'm 35 or they're 28 or whatever. And I'll say, what got you into the business? Any tips for me?" So then they start beating on their chest, trying to teach the young buck how to do the business, right?
Yep.
And then you start to transform from a voice on the phone to maybe the son who is a dipshit that won't take over the park for him and wants nothing to do with anything because his dad owns it. And maybe you can turn yourself into that son that he could never get to do what he wanted to do. And next thing you know, he's like, "Well, you know what, pitch me a number, or whatever, So it's just taking it up a notch. I used to just say, "Hey, interested in selling," and keep going. But what a waste of time that is, man.
Yeah, you only get this. I've been cold calling for years, and I like your strategy. I have a much smaller geography, so I don't have full-time callers, which actually I like that idea, or people who are willing to call on your behalf. But one thing a lot of people, I think really, they only looking for, like, if you hire someone out of the Philippines or something, like they're only getting very, very, very low hanging fruit. Like, thing selling, no, okay, thanks, bye.
Yeah.
And selling, no thanks, bye. It's like you're getting the only very, very desperate people. The thing is, there's so many people calling nowadays. You're looking at shit deals. These are just turds. And so, to your point, do you think this strategy could be used for someone maybe that doesn't have a sales team or something like that? How would you structure something like that if maybe you didn't have the people within the timeshare that you do? Would you just say, would you just have interns, or like how would you go about that?
Yeah, I think interns is a good way to do it. One of my partner uses a lot of interns, and but I also think that that if you're new into the business and you think someone's just going to come work for you and you haven't had any success yet and they're going to do it for free, you're probably setting yourself up for failure. At first you need to do it yourself. It's kind of like a manager. If let's just pretend you had a job that you did for 20 years and they threw in a manager that had never did the job before in their life, and you're supposed to follow that guy, you're probably not going to have much respect for him. So it's always you at first. So there was every Monday and Tuesdays, those were my days off. I would come in at 8 in the morning and leave at 7 at night. I would just come into my office at work and call nonstop.
Wow.
And so that at first it's just you until you see some success with it.
Right. So you're recommending, like, get get that reference experience before you try to teach someone else how to do something that you don't even do. Like if
Right.
you don't, if you don't have it, then
Well, and it's like the success aspect of it is where you can show and lure people in. It's like the job that I do. It's 100% commission, and most people, they see that and they run for the hills. If they knew what income I was making, they'd be like, "Holy shit! Like I want involved in this, right?"
yeah. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I mean, that's a great point. Um, and then let's talk a little bit more about cold calls, because I think you're uniquely positioned here where a lot of people don't have these skills, and they're scared to get on the phone. Are there any other tactics that you're using to get in front of sellers? Do you use mailers, or is it just cold calls? Like what
Just
other?
cold calls. Yeah, just cold calls. Like I said, I mean, I have been, and it's just, I would do mailers. I'm not against them. I've overly invested in my first two parks, and now all the cash is coming back. So I do things on a very minimal budget. I don't have $1 million sitting in a bank account right now.
Yep.
Fingers crossed for a little bit here, but so I keep things cheap because, and that's a luxury from having a good job though. So I have a great job that I do love, and I don't need to buy parks that get cash flow right away. If we want to reinvest the money, I'm okay. I don't use it.
So if you have a caller calling on your behalf, what does that sound like? Like, what's that pitch? I'm calling on behalf of Corey, or like, how does that work?
No, I have them trained to essentially make them a part of the organization. So they call and they say, hey, my name's such and such. I'm with CMH Investments or whatever, company name we're using at that time. And they'll start to talk about the parks that we own collectively. So I make them a part of it. And then if they start to ask, questions that are too deep for the caller, then
Yep.
that's when they'll say, "Oh yeah, actually my role in this company is to do this, this, and this, and that. Those questions there, those are best for Corey. Would you want to have a call tomorrow with him?" And then we'll set it up, or they'll just tag me in.
Oh, okay. So if you get a call from them, whatever you're doing, you're dropping their phones.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I don't care what they've got.
I'm playing if I'm throwing my kid up in the air and the phone rings, I'm turning right the other way. She's falling.
She better learn how to stand on her feet, catch her feet.
Right. She better learn how to fly quick, man.
Yeah, I love it. That's good. Okay, cool. I mean, that's great tactics. I appreciate that. So nothing else outside of mailers, which I'm sure you've sat down with many many people. Would you feel like, I guess in terms of, let's talk a little bit about offer strategy. So if you're offering offering LOIs, do you feel like you trying to like hit a target of LOIs that you're trying to hit a week, or like do you quantify that, or is it just kind of how that conversation goes?
Well, to be honest, if you would have asked me this 6 months ago, I would have given you a different answer. But nowadays, I mean, we have all felt the pain of getting a deal that it's pretty tight, and you're putting it in, and then like 10 days into due diligence, it just falls right apart. You felt that pain. It hurts. Yep. There's nothing worse, because I'm the guy that the moment that contract signed, I'm thinking about how much my net worth has already went up. Yeah. I'm thinking about how much more money I'm going to make, and I mentally already have it spent. I don't spend all my money, but you get what I'm saying. So right. I have actually been focused, easier said than done here, but I have been focused on finding deals that are so damn good that if we find $100,000 problem in DD and the seller's being an asshole and will not drop, we're still moving forward. So I'm not really looking to send out a bunch of LOIs. I'm just looking for those quality calls for quality parks. I'm starting to even shy away from turnaround parks, where it's huge projects and, big infill, because it just takes a lot of time.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about operations. You're in how many states are you in now?
3, counting Louisiana here in about 10 days. So.
Right. Okay. So you're not too far, but Louisiana, what are the other 2 states?
Michigan and Ohio.
Right. So Louisiana is pretty far from those.
Yeah.
Like when you're thinking about operations and scaling this, how do you kind of view that?
In what regards? To the Louisiana park, or just in general?
Well, just so for example, I mean, as you start to acquire more and more assets, it's just more and more things to keep in mind. And maybe this is your strategy of saying, I'm not going to devalue it anymore because I just can't have the time. I can't continue to call and build my portfolio in terms of a lot count, which is important to me. And that's my goal. Um, how do you plan to manage kind of like a national property? So if you have Louisiana, you have California, you got Ohio and Michigan, um, kind of tell me a little bit about like your thoughts on just making sure everything's going according to plan.
Yeah, so basically, obviously a part of that is not doing the really big turnaround projects, obviously, and then
Right.
making sure you have good managers in place. But, the big thing for me is, because I don't need the cash flows from the park, I plan to, have somebody that works side by side with me, pay them a salary, and make sure they're going out to each park once a month or however, depending on what we have going on at the time, visiting the parks, and then obviously being taught the back end stuff as well. So that's kind of the goal with it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you're still in hockey stick mode, right? Like you're still going up. So I totally get it. But yeah, I mean that makes a lot of sense because it sounds like your strengths are really, really on. You're like a sales machine. Like,
Yeah,
I feel,
I'd say my biggest strength is the sales side, the acquisition side, the operation side. I'm good at. I'm not incredibly passionate about dealing with tenants, right? And dealing with a manager on a daily basis. But I think actually the park that I just bought in Ohio with one of my partners. That one has actually taught me the most out of any of them, because the one park I owned by myself, so I didn't have anybody to report to. My other park just down the road from that one, we got such a smoking deal, and it's a smaller deal, so we just kind of play day by day on that one. But in my
right.
Ohio one, we focus on keeping the numbers real tight, and making sure everything is jotted down and all that. So that one has actually taught me the most on the operation side of things, for sure. It's been the most frustrating one as well.
Yeah, I mean, every park has its own challenges, right? Like,
Yeah.
regardless, as you learn a new part of the business with every deal, which you're like, dude, I would have never expected something like that. It's like something like
Right.
this would ever take
Seems like
place.
every deal teaches you multiple new things, right?
Yeah, I know. It's pretty wild just how many nuances you can learn. Even like a different county is different. Like in
Yep.
terms of like moving in homes, like some counties are a pain in the ass, and others are like, yeah, bring it all in. I don't care.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Absolutely.
they're just so wildly different. And so, what's your kind of like criteria for deals? Like in terms of lot size, like utilities, what are you looking for? And I guess, do you buy every deal you come across, or do you wholesale stuff too?
I don't really like the idea of wholesaling. So my new system that we'll have set up, I don't really like the idea of wholesaling, because it takes just as much time to wholesale a deal as it does to find three more. So the fact that I'm making, okay, great, I'm making an extra 30 grand, but I just lost out on ownership of three other parks because I'm
Yeah.
on the phone, I'm chasing down due diligence documents for a park. Now, what I would consider is if somebody said, hey, look, the park you found is in Indiana. I already own in Indiana. I operate my own parks. I don't need you. And I just say, okay, well, your acquisition fee is 2%, and I'll just shoo myself away, and you take it and go, or whatever we negotiated, right? But so I've done that. I would do that. But wholesaling in general, I'm not a fan of, which is funny because it's selling a park, right? You think I'd love it, but I actually can't stand it.
Well, I mean, you're focused on your own growth, right? Like
Right.
that's what you really care about. You're like, if someone takes this park, I don't care because I have no interest in it, and it doesn't get me to my lot count, right?
If anything, I would use a park that I didn't want to close to like throw a guy a bone and say, hey, look, take it from front to back. Don't talk to me about it. If you close it, like for example, there's one in Granite City, Illinois that I wanted, but it was just too challenging. And I met a guy through Andrew that owned a park in Granite City. So Andrew's like, hey, give him a call. So I told him, I said, no contracts, no nothing. Here's the deal. Take it, run with it. Pay me 10 grand once you close it. And I didn't talk to him until a week ago. He said, hey man, I've where do I send your money? I said, sweet. I mean, that's cool.
Awesome. Yeah.
But it's funny because he's like, you want to do a contract? I'm like, dude, I hate contracts. If you screw me over, I'll never talk to you again. So,
Right. I mean, you got that abundance mindset, right? Like you don't have time to like nickel and dime people and stuff. It's like, dude, if you're an honorable, ethical person, let's do deals. If you're a scumbag, then all right, you just blew that relationship. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm going to the top, and if you don't meet me there, that's your fault.
No doubt. No doubt.
Okay, cool. And so for your sourcing strategy, tell me a little bit, and guys, drop comments we have almost 20 people here. Let's drop some comments in the Facebook feed, so then we can get Corey on those, because he's got a ton of information. Is there anyone, are you looking for someone to be an operations person, or do you kind of have that person in mind? I'm thinking from this group's perspective, maybe there's someone who might be a good fit for your organization.
I think so. I always try not to put the cart before the horse, but obviously come December 31st, we have 1,000 lots is what it's looking like. Then it's most certainly going to be something that I'm considering in the future. If that's the case, but it's also one of those things where I do have partners, so it's some of them may say, hey, look, my comfort level is not good with having somebody else do some of this stuff. We want you to do it, and then I will, because that's a commitment that I made. But I'm thinking that as long as everything runs the same, then they won't mind.
Yeah, and what you'll learn is mobile home parks, this is not to say to be a negligent owner, but some things you can spend a little bit more time on, and it's not like they're going to run off. Like, as long as you're collecting really well and you're keeping the community safe and clean, some of these things can work themselves out, and they take longer than, say, if you had an RV park. In an RV park, people can kind of drive off. Do you have any interest in doing RVs, or is it just strictly MHC?
Well, I work, I'm, like I said, I'm a timeshare salesman, but it's for a private membership campground company. So I'm in a campground every day. That's where my office is.
Oh, interesting.
So RVs interest me. But I think there's just something inside of me that says no, because the people that I work for are extremely powerful, and I wouldn't even want to come close to being their competition. So it freaks me right out to even think of it. So I stick to my mobile homes, and, I leave the RVs. Now, I have started looking to source for them. So that's something new, just a couple months ago, where it kind of looks like it may lead to where they want me sourcing deals for them as well, which would be great.
That's an interesting. I've looked at RV parks often. It's even a more intense business model than mobile home parks, which at time can feel
especially
overwhelming.
If it's nightly, I mean, you have staff on site and all that. Now, if it's permanent sites or seasonal sites, I would look into something like that.
And what do you think? It's someone relatively new, maybe they're not finding success in mobile home parks, and since you're kind of you're closer to RV parks, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, RV, so let's just say you found something which is extremely common, like a 50-space seasonal site campground with seller financing. Extremely common. The residents are usually much happier people. They're on vacation.
Yeah.
If you keep the parks up, they're usually much happier and easier to work with types of people, because they're choosing to be there. Literally, they can take their trailer and go in 5 minutes. Prorate the rent or whatever, but they can leave much easier, which is a negative. But at the same time, most of these people that are in seasonal sites have been there for 20 years, 10 years.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm guessing that in the Midwest, and that's relatively common. I'm guessing Michigan probably has quite a few of those.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. And then, so tell me a little bit more about kind of how you're structuring deals with investors. Is that different? Is that deal by deal? Is that like, how do you view that?
Yeah, so it's deal by deal. We do, my average ownership throughout my parks is usually around, say the average is probably 24%.
Okay.
Throughout the portfolio. So, I find the deal, I operate it. And, they give me, usually anywhere from 20 to 30%. And then, so that's pretty much how we're structured. They put in the money, I put in the sweat equity, they get, it's roughly 70, I get roughly 30.
Okay. And does that start day one? Like when you do a deal? So for example,
Um,
if you had a deal that's $100,000, or say they're putting in $100,000, are you getting 30 day one?
yeah, so I get 30% ownership day one, but for example, you get nowhere being greedy. So for example, I have one partner that he really likes to shoot for like a 15 to 20% cash on cash return. And our Ohio park, I mean, it had so many leaks and water leaks, and we've had some repairs. So it's like, his cash on cash return was a big focal point of us getting into this deal. So it's like I've said multiple times, like, hey, if you want to start taking the profits, so you're getting your cash and cash return, I just take zero. So, that's not in contract. I mean, I don't have to do that, but at the end of the day, to keep an investor happy is much more important than my 30% cash flow for sure. I mean, if you lose an investor, it sucks. I mean, that's even worse than losing a park. You don't ever want to lose an investor.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, you're putting their interest first, which is your kind of like responsibility as an
Well,
operator.
most people would think that, but I'm actually putting my interests first, because if I mess with this guy, he's not going to give me any more money, and whatever he's got in his bank, I want to be able to spend it. So by looking out for him, I'm looking out for me, right?
Let's just say you have a long-term orientation with this guy. Like you're not expecting this to be your last deal. And
right.
I mean, so how do you think through jumping off full time? Is this something you want to do for full time in the future, or is it something that your W-2 job gives you so much income to put more into more deals? Like how do you think through jumping off, or if you even want to?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's funny. I mean, most people, they go and they invest, to leave their job that they can't stand. It's just not the case for me. I enjoy my job and I like it, and it's my dream job. So I mean, in our business, you go from salesman to closer to assistant manager to manager and then head of sales, and I went from salesman all the way up to the top. So it
Wow.
was a job that I thought I'd have when I was 50.
Yeah.
The people that work for me are 40, 50, whatever. So it was my dream job, and it still is to this day, and I love it. And maybe that time will come, but it's not even I'm trying to think of a way to get so big that I can pay people to do these things, and I can still continue working at a job that I like to do.
Wow. I mean, I love that perspective, because I almost never hear that where like
It is rare.
I'm building this empire of mobile home parks, but I'm staying on my job for now. It's like I'm not running away from anything,
Well, the
which a
cool
lot of
thing
people
is the
do.
longer I work that job, is the less I have to spend my mobile home park money. Because my job money, I'm not gonna lie, I spend every dollar of it. I spend it on this truck and my Corvette, and I like nice things. And all that mobile home park money, I just don't care about. It comes in, and I'll put it into something different, or it comes in and it sits in my savings account. And when I get a big check, I don't have to, live off of it, right? I mean, acquisition fee, I don't have to live off of that, so I don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens, but for now, it's just keep building and keep working.
It keeps on going. And so I think we jumped away from this a little bit. I want to talk this, and then the last couple minutes, if anyone has questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. But how'd you go from that? How'd you find those first investors? So you went to the mobile home park associations. What else did you do to find kind of more investors?
Well, so before this group, I used the MHU forum.
Okay.
Yep.
Interesting.
But now I don't go on there. Like I said, I was telling you before the call. I mean, and I'm not giving you a plug here, man. Your group is where the big players hang out. And it's almost like a cocktail lounge filled with mobile home park dudes, right?
That's awesome.
And a lot of money, right? I mean, there's millions and millions and millions of dollars inside of your guys' group, and I want my fingers on all of it, right? But yeah, so I used the MHU forums, and again, I just kind of did what I was doing on here. I would post in the subject line, just hauled in 12 homes, and people would say, "Hey, how'd you do that?" And they would just start asking questions. So you kind of bait them in with things you're doing.
You got good clickbait, man.
Right, right.
Yeah, that's good. So there's really what you're telling me, and what you're telling me on everything here is there's not one solution to any of this. It's just consistency over long periods of time in a lot of different places. So you're at the MHU forum, you're at the associations, you're on Facebook, you're having conversations with people, you're making cold calls, you're making connections with people, and do that enough, you're going to find money. Like money's going to come towards you if you have the deal that allows you to kind of participate in that.
Yeah, and if you kind of, sometimes, when I get a new investor, like that, says, hey, I want to invest in a mobile home park. When I find something that's not worth it, something I would not let that person put their money in, I'll still call them and talk them through it. So while I'm finding deals, I'm still having contact with him. So I'll call him and I'll say, hey, this is the deal I found. Here's why I think it wouldn't work, and I don't think we should do it. But this is kind of, if this was this and this was this, then this deal would work for us. And then we start talking, and and I like the guys that I can, because I swear like a sailor all day long. I like working with people like that, because being professional is just not.
Dude, you've been on great behavior today.
Right, I have been. I've been doing well. I've been doing well today, so I'm working it.
Yeah, that's great. Well, cool. I think we're gonna close up. I know. Feel free. I wanted to give you a couple minutes if people wanted to get in contact with you. Or anything like that. I mean, feel free to, have a couple minutes just to talk a little bit about, maybe some of the deals that you have coming up, or if those are already taken care of, just how people can get in contact with you if they want to discuss investment opportunities with you, or maybe if you find deals or they find deals that might fit kind of your criteria, like what is your criteria for a deal? Because other people are out there doing similar things to what you're doing. And maybe it fits your criteria and doesn't fit theirs.
Yeah. So, criteria I'm always afraid to tell people what my criteria is, because technically I would tell you the same thing everyone else tells you: 50 spaces and above, 100K MSA, all that. Right. Well, the park that I'm closing on in 10 days, another one, is 35 spaces, 25 filled, but the rents, and it's private septic, private well. So like all the red flags go off. And then you dig into it a little bit more, and we got 25,000 down and 150 per tenant rent increase. So I'll do that deal. So it's like 25,000 down. We're going to raise the rents, submeter the well and septic, because most people don't even know you can do that, but you definitely can. And then sell it. And I mean, I think we can get 1.1 once it's filled up and the rents are raised.
Got it. So let's do this. Maybe not what you're looking for. What don't you look for? Let's flip it on its head.
Yeah. So I'd like to stay away from lagoons. Crazy enough, though, I'm closing one in a month. So it was a good deal. So all
right, Corey, let's tell the truth here, please.
Right. Yeah. So I like to stay away from lagoons. And then if the city is in huge decline and it's the less than 30,000 people, it's a no-go. Less than 20 tenants is a no-go for me these days. We like to be in good markets, and then it has meat on the bone. And a lot of people, they'll ask me like, hey, this park has 10 vacant pads. There's some value add there. I know filling homes, there's value to be added that way, but that shouldn't be the main play. To me anyway, it's not the main play, right? I mean, that's a lot of work. And, if there's a $40 rent increase and we can fill the homes, and then maybe we can submeter and lower expenses, then now we're talking. But if it's just, hey, expenses are super low, rents are at market, we fill these 10 homes and we sell it, there's really nothing there,
Right. So if I'm understanding this correctly, this is just me kind of regurgitating it. You're looking for parks, at least 20 lots or higher. You're looking for, I guess lagoon is not as big, just depending on the deal that you're willing to go on. Then also too, it's really the upside that you're looking for. You're not looking for huge infill projects. Yep. Like a few infill project is probably not your best use of time, just given kind of your aspirations, that you'd rather spend time buying 10 parks than filling up 100 lots.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, I used to think, well, I'm not lazy, so I'll do a big turnaround project, and I still would. But I actually think it's I don't want to say it's lazy to do a turnaround project because it takes more work, but you're not putting the work on the front end to get the really good gems in the mine. You're kind of taking what's that surface, which are these rough deals. You have to get everybody to clean up their yards. You got to tear down 9 homes. You got to remodel 20. Those deals are easy to find. It's finding the ones where they're 60 to 85% occupied and there's a $100 rent increase kind of thing. So we're trying to put the work on the front end so we don't have to do it on the back end as much. But
So you're from a deal sourcing strategy, since you're nationwide and you have a lot of things to look at, you're seeing a lot of, for your best use of time, it's better for you to focus on not the really hairy stuff, because that's the stuff everyone's passing over, right? Like, so those deals are more abundant. It's better to find the stuff that allows you to, I guess, turn around quicker. But it seems like you're really focused on the growth of your business too. Like, it's not working in your business, you're working on your business, even though, you know what I mean? Like, those are the two. Well, let's shift a little bit back. Sorry, I took away the mic from you. So tell me a little bit more. So we got a little bit on your criteria. If someone wanted to, reach out to you and stuff, it seems like Facebook's a great spot, but is there any other way that people can get in touch? And then we'll go into some questions.
So, Facebook, and I can leave my comments. I can leave in the comments my email. Unfortunately, I don't have a ton of time. I get a lot of people that will message me, to mentor them on their first park. I really don't have that kind of time. My only advice to those people is to just put your head down and grind and get a list and start calling it, and then start calling up people like me with the deal, and then we go from there. But I'm too busy to mentor, but I definitely will look at any deal, any size, any shape, pretty much, and I can give you a quick no or a quick yes, and go from there. But I'll leave my email in the comment section for sure.
Okay. Well, Sydney had a question for you. She said, can it ever make sense to have a park-owned home park? And if so, what kinds of scenarios does that make sense for you?
I try to think about how much of my park operations is in the hands of my park manager. Now I have one phenomenal park manager in my Bay City park, and he's great. And at that park, I mean, I'll throw some park-owned homes in there, but imagine having 50 park-owned homes and having a manager that's not fixing them correctly, that's not taking care of them. And when they're breaking, he's being lazy and cobbling them together. And so basically your whole business, not only your business, your money, but also your assets, which are your trailers at that point, because they're park-owned homes, are all in the hands of somebody who resides in a park. So it scares me. I'm not afraid of having a few park-owned homes here and there if, the park manager is strong. That would be my take on that.
Yeah, I think and she followed up with a question, like newer homes, maybe. I'm guessing your answer is probably the same.
Yeah, I mean, newer, nicer homes would definitely be best. But at the same time, you could use it as, hey, maybe the lower grade homes are even better, because then a park manager isn't in control of your $50,000 per lot asset. Maybe having a $4,000 rental would be better than a newer home, because if the park manager just dilapidates it so much to the point where it's unsalvageable, you lose $4,000, right? I mean, it's not the end of the world, but I mean, years and years of neglect and that kind of stuff from a park manager could, really destroy a really nice home,
Yeah, and it's tough too if you're buying in a lot of states kind of far away. A lot can happen in 2 months or 3 months, and if you have several assets that you're looking over, it's just, as you said, more things can go wrong, and it's putting a lot of responsibility on someone's shoulder that especially at like a 50 lot park. What is, how much can you actually pay this person to look after it? And I've found that if you don't have the bigger parks, you need at least 100 lots plus for lot rent. But if it's park owned home, so you're at 60 before you can get a reasonable manager, depending on those rents. It's just, if you can't get someone who really knows what they're doing, that's you doing that work.
Yeah, yeah.
That's you
Now
becoming
I'll buy a park that has a lot of park owned homes though. I mean, too many, and pretty much all my investors, I still have yet to find an investor that is not afraid of buying the park owned homes. If they're really nice, I don't want to buy them because they're too hard to get rid of. But if they're lower grade 70s, 80s homes and there's a bunch of park owned, we go there and we say, hey, Mr. Renter, you're paying 550, you're going to 750, or you can go to 350 in 6 months by just making sure you pay your rent on time and you own the home. And you can feel okay just giving the thing away and being out from underneath it. But if it's a nice home, you can't really give a tenant a $35,000 home. So, you know, some of these park owners that try to pitch me on how nice their park owned homes, it scares me, to be honest. I could be wrong, but that's just my take on it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, cool. I think that is a great take. Thanks so much for your time. That we hit just about an hour, which is kind of what we wanted to go. It seems like we've kind of wrapped up most of the questions, but I'm sure there'll be more people kind of filtering in as the week goes on, because it seems like several people weren't able to make it. But
Well, once I hit 1,000 lots, you just invite me back on. But I will refuse to do this if I don't get a background like yours. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Hey man, once you hit that goal, it sounds like you're well on your way. We can definitely make something happen for you, man.
Fair enough, man. Cool.
All right, bud. Well, thanks so much, and we will disconnect. Thanks all so much, guys. Take it easy. Cool. I just.